السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته حضورنا الكريم. أجدد الترحيب بكم أنا وئام الدخيل في اليوم الثاني من منتدى الحراك الفني المحلي، إحدى منتديات البرنامج الثقافي لبناء الدرعية تحت شعار تتبع الحجارة. بالأمس تابعنا عروضاً وحديثاً ممتعاً وثرياً من قيادات مختلفة في مجال الثقافة والفنون، وكانوا من هيئة تطوير بوابة الدرعية وهيئة الفنون البصرية والهيئة الملكية لمحافظة العلا، مؤسسة بناء الدرعية، وأخيراً إثراء. نستكمل اليوم برنامجنا بوجودي ومشاركتي شخصيات ومختصين، ضيوفنا مختصين في مجال الثقافة والفنون والابتكار من جهات مختلفة، لتبادل الخبرات والمعرفة الفنية، وأيضا التعرف على الفرص المتاحة من خلال المبادرات الفنية والثقافية للجهات الحكومية والخاصة. والآن كل المساحة للأستاذة إلاريا بوناكوسا، مسؤولة التواصل الفني والثقافي في الهيئة الملكية لمدينة الرياض. It's great having you with us, Ilaria, and we're excited to hear from you about Riyadh Art Program and more. The stage is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about this program in which I've been involved since a year. And it's really an exciting program. And it's a program that has a scope and a breadth which is really quite incredible in contemporary times. The idea behind it is to transform Riyadh in a museum without walls. Riyadh Art is the largest public arts program being undertaken internationally. The idea of a city that becomes the canvas for creativity. The idea of a city that transforms the way citizens live because they will encounter art and creativity in their daily life. This will also attract tourists and transform the vision of the city. So, Riyadh Art. The program is comprising more than 1,000 public art installations, and it is conceived across 10 programs. And it is enriched by 2 festivals, of which maybe some of you have had the occasion of visiting or encountering them. And it's spread all around the city, from the center to the periphery, transforming really the way the city is navigated. Riyadh Art is one of the 4 great projects launched by His Majesty King Salman bin Abdulaziz, an initiative of His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Crown Prince, in line with the Kingdom's Vision 2030. The goal is to transform the capital in one of the world's most livable, environmentally friendly, and sustainable city. This city is transforming itself at a rate which is incredible. I'm not based here permanently. I'm here once a month for about 10 days, and every time I come, I'm surprised by the speed and the transformation. For us, old Europeans, this is incredible. Our cities move like tortoises, and often, in order to make a transformation to the urban landscape, it takes years and years, and you don't often see it in your lifetime. The city is growing. It has more than 7 million residents, and many of these are young, educated, talented people. So, Vision 2030, Quality of the Life program, and some of the pillars that are relevant to our project are the social engagement, heritage, culture, and arts. And then we come to Riyadh Art, 10 programs and 2 festivals. But let's focus a moment. Why Riyadh Art? Why does the city of Riyadh engage in such a monumental transformation? Why does it make sense for a city that is changing so fast to imagine its future with art all around its structure? Saudi Arabia is in a journey of transformation, and the transformation is geared to create a vibrant society, and this will happen thanks to the thriving economy. The kingdom has the 18th largest economy in the world and the 5th highest GDP per capita. But this is not obvious. Not all countries that have a wealthy economy decide to invest in culture and art. This is something that can really transform the perception of a country. And for me, working in art and having a passion for contemporary art, this makes Riyadh and the kingdom highly appealing. So, the pillars of this program, it's not just the quality of the art, but the idea is to build the Riyadh Art Program around people, places, and the economy. So, people. Riyadh Art has the goal of bringing inspiration and beauty to all the residents of the city, different generations, different education, different jobs, but also to visitors. The program is geared to the idea of facilitating and creating an attractive city for international tourists and visitors. How will the city change? It will become more vibrant, livable, and have a completely new cultural landscape. This is done not by cancelling what was here before, but with the consciousness of the heritage of the country to transform the landmarks and build around it, creating contemporary landmarks for the city. And the economy. The economic growth of the country is linked to many activities, but the creative economy is one that should not be forgotten. The creative economy is a broad spectrum of activities in which many young professionals can be engaged. They can be engaged, obviously, by being artists, designers, architects, but the scope of these professions is actually very broad. As we were saying, the idea of Riyadh Art is, in a way, to have a program which is of great quality, but also in some way easily accessible. The idea is that because it's art that you encounter without having to look for it, you encounter it in your daily life, you encounter it if you're someone working, if you're a family, if you're a tourist, if you're a resident, and in a way it should have an open attitude to communicating. Contemporary art is often accused of being difficult. I don't think contemporary art is difficult. Contemporary art is the art of our time. All art has been contemporary to someone, but obviously public art has a bit of a different responsibility. Public art is in the city, and it should in some way offer a key of access to the citizens, even if they're not knowledgeable or formed in the fields of contemporary creativity. The creative economy is something very important. It's very important internationally. It's been used by cities to transform neighborhoods, to requalify full cities. It's been used by countries to enter a global map of cultural significance. The phenomena marked the end of the 90s and the 2000s of biennials all around the world that were putting countries on the map. And I'm saying this because the occasion of the Diriyah Biennial is really significant, and it's a landmark in the history of Saudi contemporary art. It's something that has not escaped the global attention, and it will really help promote the idea of the talent coming from this region. If we think of creative economy across the world, it would be the 4th largest economy in the world. So it's really something that has to be taken in consideration. And like I was saying, creative economy is also made of restorers, art handlers, shippers, transporters. When we think of art, it's not just the artists. It's a full system that allows a country to build museums, store the art, conserve it, and really create a history for the future through contemporary art. But let's get into the details of Riyadh Art. So Riyadh Art is defined in 10 programs plus 2 festivals. And these programs are being developed in parallel through the city. And the programs, and then I'll go deeper in them, but are Urban Art Lab, which is a program which imagines temporary architectural pavilion in the city squares. These pavilions are imagined to allow the interaction between digital art, workshops, to have citizens engage with the art, but also to create spaces where you encounter art and culture, where you can discover more about the program throughout the city. Welcoming Gateways. This is a fascinating program which is inspired by a historic tradition of creating grand gateways to cities in moments of transformation. Everybody will probably be aware that the Arc de Triomphe in Paris this year was completely transformed by the intervention of Christo and Jean-Claude, making it one of the most seen monuments in these past years. Urban Flow is geared to promoting the pedestrian navigation of the city, and it invites designers and artists to conceive pedestrian bridges, moments of stopping, features that invite citizens to use the idea of walking through the city. The Riyadh icon is a challenge. What is an icon of a city? What is an icon in the 21st century? it's not an easy question. It's not a question that we have answered. The program develops, and in the development and in the transformation, the programs themselves change and are debated and questioned. Joyous Gardens is one of the most fascinating projects because it's really quite unheard of on an international level. It's the idea of transforming small local gardens into parks where art is installed, but where especially the features of the garden are made by artists and designers. So benches, slides, roundabout games, the idea that inserting beauty in this landscape can make a difference. Art on the Move. Art on the Move is one of the programs that is progressing faster, on which we are more active. It obviously starts from the tradition of the roundabout art, which in Jeddah has a history and is spread all through the world. And the idea is that these landmarks at the roundabouts are an occasion to encounter art, but also a way of help navigating the city. The Hidden River Trail, it's the implementation of art, parks installing on through the wadis and across the rivers. The Jewels of Riyadh is one of the core programs which is happening faster than the others, and it's about acquiring public artworks, important installations to be installed in the, as urban landmarks. It's a way of creating an outdoor historical museum of public art. Art in Transit is an incredible project that sees art installed in the metro and the bus stations. And while many cities have art in their subway, it's very rare that this is thought of in the moment of the building of the subway. Usually this happens through 20 years slowly by transforming the subway stops. But this is really with the texture of the city. Garden City, transforming the central green area of the city into an outdoor museum. And then we come to the two festivals. Well, the Noor Festival, many of you who are here had the occasion to see the festival a year ago, and it was really quite incredible. It's a light and art contemporary festival. Sadly, a lot of international travelers, due to travel restrictions, couldn't really make it to Saudi at the time, but we are all sure that the second edition will bring global attention and tourism. And To Wake Sculpture, which is a program very peculiar of the region, it's a sculpture festival dedicated to live sculpting, in this occasion marble, and these sculptures become patrimony of the city of Riyadh. But this is the master plan. The master plan obviously is something that changes because, as we've been saying, the city changes so much that one of the biggest challenges is in this fast transformation where everybody is active. Green Riyadh is changing the city. Museums are opening. The streets are being transformed. Obviously, there has to be a level of coordination and discussion so that the master plan is continuously rethought and rediscussed according to what's being changed. But let's go a little bit deeper into the single projects. Urban Art Lab. The photo that you see is the Serpentine Pavilion. The Serpentine Pavilion has been a successful way for a very small museum with a very good reputation to enlarge its space in the summer. The pavilion is really something that happens in the park in London every year by a famous architect or design studio, and becomes a place of aggregation where people go to have a coffee, to talk about culture, and it's occasionally created events, and it often hosts a cultural marathon, which is 24 hours discussions on art. And so why urban pavilions in the city? Well, first, it's a good occasion to have temporary architecture, which can really bring experimental models of architecture. It allows for fast pavilions being built and moved in the city. And in these pavilions, it's easy to have a daily interaction with culture, to enact projects of community engagement, educational projects, and also to have talks and performances and video projections and digital art. These spaces are thought of as really places that in the city will become hubs of culture. And the pavilions will have a distinctive architectural form, but will also be designed and thought with an attention to sustainability and the more high-end innovations in building. And this really allows for these spaces to be open to citizens, and the idea is that they'll be installed in places of high passage and traffic, so that citizens don't have to look for the pavilions, but in some way will encounter them in their daily life. And the pavilions will be moved, and then there'll be new ones, and the idea is that by moving through the city, they'll be able to reach new audiences because the city is actually changing and very large. The second project we'll talk about, like we said, is Joyous Gardens. Joyous Gardens, as we said, will transform small and medium parks throughout the city in spaces of creativity. The idea is that if families and children encounter art in their daily life, it's much easier for them to then have a desire to understand more about art, to go to museums, to study. Because once art is in your daily life, you have an attitude to be reactive to it instead of critical. And it's really thought as spaces of being outdoors, and one of the advantages is obviously it wants to push citizens to be more outdoors and live in public space as spaces where you can encounter and meet other people. So these pavilions will engage local communities and will have this transversal social attitude. They'll be easy to access for citizens in their own neighborhoods. And they will have an important impact on quality of life and well-being. They will inspire future generations. This is something that is transversal to the program, and I think to all the cultural activities in the kingdom. Encountering contemporary art makes citizens more critical, allows people to learn transversal thinking, and can really give you tools which are helpful in making you successful in very different fields. And obviously it will make the city a friendly place for children and family. And the idea of going to the park will not just be an idea of being outdoors, but an idea of encountering culture. Jewels of Riyadh. Jewels of Riyadh, in a way, is the more traditional public art project. Cities all around the world, and this is a photo of New York with a beautiful Calder, have had art in the squares. This is the contemporary version of 19th century monuments, with the idea that while before the monuments were built with the idea of just celebrating like a military or someone who had transformed the contemporary history, now they're monuments that talk of many things. They talk of the city, they talk of philosophical issues, they talk of games, and they talk of energy, and they talk of different things. But the idea of having international artists have monuments through the city creates also a benchmark and the occasion for art lovers, art students to see great masterpieces of contemporary art without having to travel or go to the museums. These monuments become usually friends of the people who use an environment, and often they give nicknames to the squares in which they're built, and citizens create kind of a personal relationship with these monuments. And obviously, this type of intervention is geared also to an international audience. It helps insert Riyadh on an international map, on a map of art lovers, like the Diriyah Biennial and the museums that will be opening. Welcoming gateways. The one you see is a pavilion by Olafur Eliasson. The idea, like we said, is to have artists and architects working together. And I'll just say something, that the images you're seeing are not the images of what we are doing. They're images of inspiration. But they really help imagine what the program is going to be. And the idea of having important architects work with artists to make these landmark gates to the city is really the idea of a contemporary model of the gateway. And what do these gateways do? They mark the entrance to the city. They refer to a tradition of a gated city where the idea of protection was linked with being inside the walls of the city. And they inspire this idea that Riyadh wants to welcome citizens, but also be a place where to live and flourish. And they also obviously talk about the idea of how, and this is something which is very important, tradition and contemporary views collaborate, because obviously the programs are always geared to have art and culture not land like a spaceship in Riyadh, but to be thought with the ideas linked to a tradition, to a history, to a climate, which is not so easy for some artworks. And really, it's about this mixing of heritage and a contemporary vision. Art on the Move. Art on the Move is probably one of the programs which is more linked to a tradition. Jeddah is really one of the incredible cities in the world that has important public art made by artists in a time where usually cities were having very traditional, unchallenging artists work in public space. And these will be monumental scale installations. They will be thought for site-specific interventions by international and local artists. And this is also something important and why I believe this two-day workshop is so crucial. The idea is that All Riyadh program will, yes, have international artists, very famous and emerging, but it also has to support the growth of local talent, both very famous and emerging, and really give the occasion to artists working in the region to work on a public and monumental scale. Many times these occasions are really important for the transformation of a career on artists. And as someone who's worked internationally, I have to say that the richness of the scene and the talent of the artists working is really quite exceptional. And I think the idea of having to be able to work with a public project with important budgets will really help the careers of these artists grow and the projects become more and more sophisticated. Obviously, these landmarks will change the city and will also become instruments to navigate the city. Because for someone like me who is not here all the time, at the beginning, these roundabouts all look very similar. And the idea of having art, which, yes, is something beautiful and interesting, but it also marks the path, gives art a very fascinating responsibility. Here we have art in transit. Like I said, it's about having art in the subway stops of the new 6 metro lines that are being finalized and in the bus stops. This means that the people who use public transport will encounter art in their daily life, but it's also the idea that you are pushing people with the excuse of seeing art to pick public transport. Maybe leaving their cars, and so helping also the sustainability of the city and the quality of life. And really, I mean, this is something that has been tested in many global cities. Having art on the subway is really something that is an important occasion to see culture in your daily commute. Obviously, it's art that has to be fast to see, and this sounds nasty, but it's true that when people are commuting, they're moving. And you don't really want them stopping too long because then they'll block the flow. So the idea is to have challenging and stunning artworks, but that allow for this flux of movement, and in the same to have some feature interventions in the bus stops. Urban flow. Urban flow integrates the idea of public art in a whole city network of pedestrian walkways. The idea is that it's linked also to pedestrian bridges, which are a big theme sometimes of moving through the city of Riyadh, also linked to security. And it also obviously pushes individuals, family, visitors to decide to walk somewhere because it's safe, because it's beautiful, and because you can cross easily without feeling you're in danger. And the idea is that it will also use features linked with a solar energy lighting feature and features of allowing people to rest and use public space in a new way. The Hidden River Art Trail, actually composed in 2 parts. One part is linked to the bridges that usually are used by cars and transverse over the wadi, and these bridges will be illuminated by art interventions by light designers and light artists, and these interventions will transform these bridges into artistic landmarks, but will also allow for in particular, the Wadi Laban Bridge will have a very monumental and important installation given the importance and the visibility of the bridge. And the idea is so that driving these bridges become, in a way, light and light shows. And it's also about promoting technology and innovation, because obviously art through the bridges is very much about the new revolutions in this field. But there's also the wadis and the idea of these very well restructured parks on the wadi that will see public sculpture. And the wadis are really used by local families as places of spending leisure time and aggregation. And the idea of having art in these parks is really instrumental to have citizens and locals encounter art, which is in a way thought to be in public space, in nature, and be encountered in their own space. Garden City. Garden City is about the idea of this, and it's a project that is very much being developed with Green Riyadh, a pulsating green heart in the city, where nature and features of culture interact, with the idea that the heart of the city should see quality life, culture, and different features living together. And in this park, there will be public art interventions. What you see is a sculpture by Ugo Rondinone, which was installed in a British park for Frieze, London. But these features in London are usually installed for about 2-3 months, while here the idea is to install some of the works permanently and some of the works instead on a rotating basis, so that you can have outdoor exhibitions with public artworks. And in this, I have to say, and this is why it's great to be in this forum, the collaboration with all the stakeholders active in the city, in the region, is paramount, because together the power of transformation is multiplied. It's not an addition. And really the energies can go together to transform the landscape. Riyadh Icon is the big bet of the project. It's about what is an icon of the city of Riyadh. Usually icons become icons besides themselves after they've been built. Tour Eiffel was built for the as a temporary monument, and now it's kind of one of the most well-known global monuments in the world. And so what is an icon to the city of Riyadh? There's a lot of discussion. We are inviting a panel of an advisory board made of architects, sociologists, urban planners, people who teach at MIT, in order to have a discussion about what the ideas and where we stand in today with the idea of building a landmark, and also concerned with issues of sustainability, of development and transformation. In the same, and I didn't mention it at the beginning, but Riyadh Art has also a board of experts, which is our expert panel, which are international museum directors and curators who've just come for the first time to Riyadh in December, who are engaged into validating the cultural part of the program, to helping us judge competitions, to advise on artworks, and they are coming from different countries with different backgrounds, and they're really a precious addition to the vision and the transformation of the city. And now we come to the two festivals. These two festivals are by their nature quite different compared to permanent intervention in the city. Permanent interventions are slow in a way to come up. They seem costly, but then in a way they exist on their own terms for 20, 30 years, becoming permanent features of the city. Festivals function in a very different way. They're very fast. They attract a lot of people, but they give Riyadh also the occasion to attract the people interested in arts and culture in the city, to create a scene, and also to kind of start digesting contemporary art and culture. Because at the end, there is an idea of a habit of seeing art and culture, and this biennial has been also very important, where citizens should have many occasions to see contemporary art. And the Noor Festival was born as a light festival, but it became much more than a light festival. It's a light festival which is also focused on the best examples of contemporary art. It sees an exhibition, it sees a public installation, but also indoor installations that transform the city. The idea is that from 30 it will go to 50 installations through the city. And the last edition, the 2020 edition, achieved 2 world records. And for specifically community and a symposium that invites sculptors to work live on marble. It might change to other stones in other years. And the idea is that what does it mean nowadays to make contemporary sculptures? We all know that many international artists actually make art through their fabricators. They don't make art with their hands, but there is something material, and it's quite exciting to see the sculptures being carved. And for the public, it was really a great occasion to be able to visit the site while the artists were doing their finishing touches. And then there's a prize, and the 10 of the artworks get installed and become part of the patrimony of the city. And there's a winner who has a prize to produce new artwork. And I think I'm done. At this point, I will open to your questions. I'll be happy to answer, even if I hope I have the answers, because as I said at the beginning, it's a project which is growing, it's in transformation, and I'm sure many things will be changing super fast to make the project more challenging and more successful.
Thank you. It's an inspiring lineup of programs and very ambitious. I'm particularly entranced by Art in Transit, which I think will be really one of the most remarkable of these programs, because it insinuates itself into everyday lives. And I think what's also interesting about the metro system and the bus system is that probably for the next 10 years, overwhelmingly, I think most of the ridership are going to actually be non-Saudi. There'll be some of the expat laborers that are, such an essential and often overlooked part of Riyadh's urban economy. My question is, has any thought been given, or can we give any thought to, especially in the context of local art ecosystems, within Art in Transit, what would it mean to align at least some of that programming with the most likely riders and users of the metro system, who may have their own artistic conventions and aesthetics, and what would it mean to really integrate what is an often overlooked community in Riyadh?
There is, you're correct, a whole project linked to community engagement, which for Art in Transit is not only linked to activating the metro stations and the buses after, but the idea is that the community engagement will be in the phases also of production and creation. Obviously, community engagement is a very fascinating contemporary tool of engaging citizens with art. It also is a very long-term project. You don't do community engagement in 2 months. So obviously there'll be some stations that will be thought and will build this community engagement, but if it was done all through the city, it would really slow the process of creating art. Also, a successful community engagement needs people to understand each other, and so having a numerous number of Saudi artists, or Saudi-speaking artists, I have to say, it's not about passport, it's about being to communication, will help this sort of community engagement. But like I say, it's the first time this is being done, and the difficulties in all this project is that being something so new, the laws are being, and the ways of developing contracts and managing the program are being developed while we speak. There isn't an easy path of how to do it. And so all this will be developed with the support of the City of Royal Commission, finding the best way to make the project responsive to citizens' desire and to high international qualities of artistic production.
Artistic movement to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I believe lots of amazing work and artistic pieces will be developed. Have we put into consideration the other cities of the kingdom? How will they benefit from this amazing programs and initiatives?
Well, obviously Riyadh Art, by its name, is really focused on the city of Riyadh. And I'm sure the kingdom is developing projects which are geared to engaging different cities. But what I can say is that the creative economy and the occasions to work on this are not for artists living and working in Riyadh, for industries living and working in Riyadh. And the idea of involving talents and even industries active in the region is not only focused on the city of Riyadh. So I think in this sense, it can really be an important occasion even for either industries or talented individuals to be part of a broader project of transformation.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilaria, for your lavish presentation. Riyadh Art will definitely transform Riyadh into a gallery without walls and a creative powerhouse for the digital era. حضورنا الكريم، لشركة البحر الأحمر للتطوير عرض مفصل عن مشروع البحر الأحمر ومشروع أمالة يقدمه الأستاذ نافيد نيكنيجاد مدير الفنون والثقافة في شركة البحر الأحمر للتطوير. It's a great pleasure having you with us. The stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Security alert. It's my pleasure today to take you through the Red Sea Development Company, give you some background on the projects that we're working on. We have a full portfolio of projects, and of course, to give you some insights into our arts and culture offering as well. Given where we are at in our delivery timelines, it's important that I say that whatever I present to you today is subject to change, and please take everything I say with a big grain of salt. But in the next coming months, we're going to expect some new announcements where we're going to flesh out some real details, some tangible results, and hopefully continue the conversation from there. So, today I'm actually going to be presenting to you two projects. One is Amala and one's the Red Sea project. Over the course of this past year, I've had a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between these projects? What's the relationship between the two? Does one, merge with the other, etc.? So basically, in a nutshell, these are two separate projects that were established by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. And the CEO of the Red Sea Development Company, which was solely overseeing the Red Sea project, was appointed as the CEO of Amala approximately 1 year ago. And now, the Red Sea Development Company is in the process of acquiring Amala. So, in effect, these are two separate projects within an overarching portfolio. But they will each have their own strategy, their own market positioning, and their own, let's say, value proposition that they're going to be bringing in the market. So in addition to Amala and the Red Sea project, there's actually now a full portfolio of projects that the Red Sea Development Company is looking into. These are all spanning the entire coast of the Red Sea. And even though they each have their own strategic positioning and their different value proposition, they might vary in terms of size and in terms of the markets that they're trying to attract. In essence, altogether, they're going to be building what we see as the new Saudi Arabian Riviera. So These are all in different stages of let's say, strategic development. And as we get more information and flesh them out more, we'll obviously be having conversations around each of these projects on their own. So, I'm going to be, as I say, talking about two projects today. These are the flagship projects of the portfolio. They are born out of Vision 2030, and they plan to position Saudi Arabia on the global tourism map. These will be exquisite luxury destinations built around nature, islands, wellness, and culture. They will bring new standards in sustainable development, and they will be a key contributor to the economy of Saudi Arabia by generating 120,000 jobs, 70,000 of which will be direct jobs and 50,000 of which will be indirect jobs. These iconic projects present a new approach to modern luxury tourism. The Red Sea Project and Amala are distinctive in their strategic location, the pristine natural environment, the range of activities that they offer, their focus on sustainability and regenerative tourism, their leveraging a special economic zone, and their focus on breakthrough offerings in the context of a smart city. These projects will pioneer new sustainability standards. These will be natural, social, and economic sustainability standards, all of which will tick the 17 boxes of the Sustainable Development Goals. We plan to not only preserve the existing environment in which we're developing our projects, but to also enhance them. So having a net positive impact on biodiversity is one of our key goals. So over here we say 30% net conservation benefit. A large portion of our territories will be natural reserves. They will remain completely untouched. And we will also have 75% of our islands in our territory remain completely untouched. We will be carbon neutral. We will rely on sustainable building standards. Renewable energy is a key component of our projects, and eliminating the use of single-use plastics, and producing zero landfill waste as well. Now I'd like to take your attention to specifically the Red Sea project. The assets that we have in this project are more focused on hospitality and tourism. We have other projects in our portfolio, such as Amala, which actually have dedicated assets towards arts and culture, but nevertheless, we still have a considerable arts and culture offering at the Red Sea project, which I'll take you guys through. But first, I wanted to share with you one of the key assets of the project, which is, of course, the natural wonders of this project site, which is an archipelago of 90 islands with stunning coral reefs, 200 kilometers of pristine coastline, dormant volcanoes, nature reserves, and home to thriving coral reefs and endangered species. The project is anchored in hospitality. The Red Sea project would actually deliver a diverse array of offerings, varying price points, experiences that will appeal to a broad spectrum of luxury travelers. The offering types are designed to appeal to families, couples, and solo travelers as well, with hospitality assets ranging from premium to hyper-luxury. We will have varying experience types, from exclusive to private experiences to more vibrant social atmospheres. We will provide mono islands, which are single resorts on a single island, hub islands, which are multiple resorts on a single island, and then we have our inland experiences and resorts, which will be more secluded and perhaps in the desert or the mountains of our territory. Phase 1 of the development will see 5 islands being developed, 2 inland sites, 3,000 keys, and will attract 300,000 visitors. We see that this phase of the project will be delivered in Q4 of next year, though we actually expect to see our first guests at the end of this year. Sorry. So the phase 1 assets will deliver 3,000 built assets. This will be hyper-luxury, luxury lifestyle, and premium hotels, luxury residential villas, an 18-hole championship golf course and clubhouse, an airport expecting 1 million passengers annually by 2030, a coastal village of 7,200 units. When it comes to infrastructure, we will be providing extensive roads and highways, 1 million square meters of a landscape nursery, utilities, as well as service marinas and jetties. The overall development will see 22 islands being developed. That's 6 inland sites, 8,000 quays, and 1 million visitors per year. The project will provide a constellation of experiences which will cater to the new luxury traveler. These will include nature lovers, adventurers, and cultural explorers. And now to arts and culture at the Red Sea project. So these, as I mentioned, will be heavily focused on programming. We see these divided into 5 key buckets: heritage, visual art, gastro, fashion, and music and performance experiences. Heritage experiences may include Saudi handcrafts being created on-site and for sale in our public areas, storytelling experiences in a Bedouin camp in the desert, personalized scents and fragrances inspired by Arabian ingredients, archaeology expeditions into the surrounding sites, and journeys into nearby shipwrecks. When it comes to visual arts experiences, these may include art exhibitions, competitions, workshops for children and families, public art offerings, including large-scale, site-specific artwork. Gastro experiences may include tasting sessions, cooking classes with local ingredients, farmers markets, including local produce, and farm tours to our surrounding farms. Fashion experiences may include contemporary fashion from KSA talent in our retail village, fashion shows of regional talent, personalized items, and capsule collections. Music and performance experiences can include live performances in our public areas and intimate performances and shows in the desert. And now I'm going to take your direction towards Amala. Perhaps in the entire portfolio of the Red Sea Development Company, Amala is the real seat of arts and culture, where we actually have several dedicated arts and culture assets. Arts and culture is, in fact, one of the key pillars of Amala. Herein, we will provide dedicated art assets, a socially focused art program, a merger of art and the landscape, a world-class cultural calendar. The 2 other pillars of Amala are season and lifestyle. Season and lifestyle, the first one, is actually more focused on everything related to the beaches and the marine environment, the water surrounding our territory. And the third pillar is wellness and sports. Wellness is focused on a significant number of wellness offerings in the context of several resorts, in addition to golf, equestrian, and polo facilities. Transformation plays a key role in the ethos of Amala, as well as delivering truly bespoke experiences to each of our guests. And this philosophy permeates through all of the pillars of the project. Our motto is that we create transformative personal experiences inspired by the arts, wellness, and purity of the world, and the purity of the Red Sea. Amala has 3 master plans. Each will deliver a unique set of experiences with varying levels of exclusivity. The island is our most exclusive master plan. It is an elegant enclave of resorts and residences, home to lush Arabian-inspired gardens with artistic flair. The coastal development is focused on arts, culture, and conservation. Triple Bay is a place for wellness, rejuvenation, and longevity. Now going into the first master plan, which is Triple Bay. This will be actually the first one to come online. Here we will have some key wellness offerings in the Wellness Core, a Marine Life Institute, which will be a platform for science and research. Key activities there will be coral regeneration, marine life conservation. We will also have a significant guest experience at this institute. Hotels and guest accommodations are a significant part as well. in addition to resident villas and condominiums. The island is a more secluded offering. Here we'll have residential villas and condos, hotels, Arabian-inspired botanical garden, a world-class 18-hole golf course, and some dedicated art assets here as well. The third master plan is the coastal development. This is our more accessible of the three master plans. Here we will have our cultural village, which will have our key art assets, including an art museum, hotels and resorts, guest accommodations, including villas and condominiums. So, arts and culture at Amala. Here, our vision is to be a vibrant arts and culture hub that will establish KSA's North Red Sea as a globally recognized epicenter for the arts. We have 5 key areas of offering, which are arts-related assets, including museums, artist residencies, etc., art collection, an art program, and events and programming. It is important to note that all elements mentioned here are not meant to be exclusive to Amala guests. In fact, we see this project playing a key role within the arts ecosystem on a national level, and we hope to attract visitors of all kinds, all walks of life, international and domestic as well. We believe that there's actually an opportunity to create a cultural itinerary in adjacency to other projects in that arena as well. So the aspect of community integration becomes really important for this project in order to give it legitimacy, authenticity, and really create something which is vibrant for people. So we really want to engage with the public, with the community from an early stage, and this forum is perhaps our first tiptoe into that arena. So when it comes to art assets, these will mostly be, let's say, taking place in our cultural village, which will include an art museum, indoor and outdoor art experiences, multi-purpose hall for performances and events. Of course, for us, it's important that we differentiate our project, given that there's a lot happening, and I think this is a conversation that many of the players are having, is how do we not overlap in what we're doing from a curatorial approach, and of course, this is something that we're looking at. So how do we develop something which is unique to Amala? So you can see on the left-hand side there, we have the key aspects which make Amala unique. Its location, its philosophy, its customers, and its value propositions. So through this, we plan to formulate and synthesize a unique curatorial direction. Some of the themes that we might be dealing with are sea, sustainability, nature, discovery, transformation, community, immersion, and wellness. When it comes to the art collection, we will also take that uniquely Amala brand and curatorial direction and, of course, apply it to our art collection as well, which will span a variety of styles. This collection will entail international and KSA artists, established and emerging talent as well. We also have the Amala Arts Program, which is our socially focused element of the arts offering at Amala. The idea here is to generate tangible value and social impact in the arts and culture sphere. This will be delivered via 4 key mechanisms. Number 1, knowledge creation initiatives. Number 2, exposure platforms, education initiatives, and direct support. Amala will also offer a dynamic pre- and post-opening events calendar, again, inspired by our uniquely Amala positioning. The idea here, and one element that we really want to ingrain into our events and programming, is how we can build communities. Community building is a key component of the Amala brand and philosophy. So key communities of like-minded individuals, which might be collecting over certain desires and things that they enjoy. And again, imbuing elements of sustainability and philanthropy, which are also core to Amala's value proposition as well. So where we stand now in terms of our arts and culture vision and our processes and going forward, currently we're still at the strategic phase, towards the end of that strategic phase where we're modifying certain aspects of our service offering, making adjustments to our master plans, etc. Once this is fully approved and we are able to share all that detailed information with you, then we can start having hopefully more tangible and let's say fleshed out conversations around arts and culture. One of the first things that we're going to start to do is to build our art collection. This will be focused on primarily at the beginning on large site-specific installations. Then we will move towards setting up a foundation, which we see as being one of the key mechanisms of how we will deliver our arts and culture vision. Then we will shift towards our pre-opening stage, which is really a ramp-up of what we're going to be delivering in our arts and culture strategy. And then finally going towards a project launch, which will be focused more on operations of our key assets, including our museum, artist residencies, etc., whatever else will be part of our arts district. So partnerships are a key element and key facet towards our approach in how we will deliver our value proposition. We see us having collaborations and partnerships with key stakeholders in the ecosystem, several of the commissions of the Ministry of Culture, for example, but in addition to that, other key stakeholders, some of which are present in the room today and part of this forum. But really, we are really taking a collaborative approach and hope to have further conversations in this arena. Our interactions with artists might be direct, the TRSTC directly engaging artists, or it might be via our collaborators and partners as well. The Kingdom has already come very, very far in terms of its arts and culture offering. The Diriyah Biennale itself is a huge leap forward and something that we should all be proud of in the nation. Furthermore, there are many exciting upcoming offerings, some of which we've heard over the course of this forum. But this is only the beginning of a very long journey. And in order for us to deliver this Vision 2030, of which arts and culture is a key component, it really does take a collaborative approach, several parties working together, addressing structural, systemic issues, and to really work together. Working in consort, creating a collaborative spirit and a sense of us, I think, is really important for us to deliver the future vision of arts and culture in Saudi Arabia. I would like to close off by thanking the Diriyah Biennale Foundation for organizing this forum, which is one of the key mechanisms by which we can have these conversations. The experience so far has been very fruitful for myself, and I hope that this is the beginning of a long and rich dialogue with players in the nation, but also with the public going forward in the future. So that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Navid, for a greatly informative presentation from the strategic approach to the sustainable standards and heritage, fashion, music, visual arts experiences in the Red Sea project and Amala, such an ambitious master plan. حضورنا الكريم الآن بناخذ استراحة قصيرة لمدة 15 دقيقة وبعدها نعود لنستكمل جدولنا اليوم. Enjoy your break. We expect having you back after 15 minutes. Thank you. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أجدد الترحيب بكم في اليوم الثاني من منتدى الحراك الفني المحلي، ويسعدني الآن أن أرحب بالأستاذ محمد حافظ نائب رئيس ساك مؤسسة الفن للجميع. له عرض سيتحدث فيه عن ما تحقق وما سيتحقق لمؤسسة الفن للجميع، فليتفضل مشكورا إلى المنصة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. في البداية أعرفكم بنفسي. اسمي محمد حافظ، نائب رئيس ساك، مؤسسة الفن للجميع أو Social Art Collective. كان اسمنا المجلس الفني السعودي. For those who came across us in the past, we were called the Saudi Art Council, and now we're called SAC. I'm the vice chair. My name is Mohammed Hafiz, and I would like to thank you all for taking the time and being with us here, and also take this opportunity to thank the DBF team, Ayal Bakri, and everyone who's working with her on putting this forum together. It is a unique time to meet, experience, and share all these amazing cultural initiatives that are happening across the country. I have prepared a presentation in English, but I'll be giving my presentation in Arabic to balance both languages. It's going to take about maybe 25 minutes, and then open the floor for any questions. Bismillah. طيب, I have to use the clicker. يمين, شكرا. So في البداية هحكيكم so the presentation العرض يحتوي على فكرة عامة عن ساك، نشاطاتنا في الفترة الماضية، والطرق اللي ممكن نتعاون فيها مع الفنانين والعاملين في القطاع الفني. So the presentation is going to take you through 3 sections: who we are, what's SAC, what we do and what we have done, and how to engage with us. And في البداية حوريكم فيديو سجلناه في عام 2014 بعد سنة من تأسيس المؤسسة، وكان في بعض الرؤى والأفكار والتطلعات. حابة أوريكم هو قبل ما نبدأ presentation. I'm going to share with you a video that we have that we shot. I'm repeating myself and there is instant translation, so sorry for that. We don't have sound.
نبدأ بوصية سيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام: إذا قامت القيامة وفي يد أحدكم فسيلة فليغرسها. وأعتقد إنه هذا غرس حضاري يتم في المنطقة التاريخية وصنع لتراث قادم.
ومن أحد الأهداف اللي رصدها المجلس قدامه هي تأسيس المراكز الثقافية اللي حتكون نواة دائمة لتطوير الحركة الفنية ونقطة تبادل والالتقاء للفنانين محلياً وعالمياً.
يمكن هذه تكون نواة صغيرة اللي تقدر تساعدهم إنهم يشتغلوا على نفسهم، ياخدوا دورات، ومع المجلس الفني السعودي والشغل اللي بيسويه ممكن يصير فيه تواصل بينهم وبين الآخر.
أنا أعتقد إنه حتكون مركز في وقت من الأوقات ممكن يكون رسالة للعالم إنه في هذا المكان وفي هذه جدة اللي هي جدة على فكرة مبانيها وكل ما فيها من تراث هي فنية في حد ذاتها، لأنه أنت بتلاحظ الفن في الرواشين، وبتلاحظ الفن في النكش اللي على البيبان وعلى على الرواشين نفسها متغيرة، مش كل الرواشين زي بعض، وده يدل على إنه أهل البلد كانوا في ذاك الوقت في عندهم هذه الروح.
الرباط الخنجي من أقدم الأربطة في المنطقة التاريخية، طبعا مبني من عائلة الخنجي. طبعا هي من العوائل اللي عاشت في جدة فترة طويلة، واعتبر هم من أثرياء مدينة جدة التاريخية. والدليل أنه عندهم رباطين، يعني العوائل اللي عندهم رباطين في المنطقة التاريخية هم عائلة الخنجي وبيت باعشي، عندهم رباط جنب بيت باعشي، وعندهم رباط ثاني في سوق الجامع. فهذا يدل أنها عائلة كانت عريقة ومقتدرة ماليا، وكانت تقدر تنفق على المحتاجين اللي فيها.
جدا احنا محتاجين لهذا المكان، يعني جدا محتاجين. يعني كل الجهود جالسه تصير جهود شخصيه انه انت تروح تبحث عن شخص، لكن ما في منطقه هي بتعطي من نفسها.
طبعا الفرصه جدا حلوه انه احنا الله راد والمجلس الفني السعودي حصل على رباط الخنجي من اجل تقديم العطاء حق الفن.
تكملة الحلم هو المركز الثقافي الفني. ما في شيء معين إنه تكون يعني إنه يكون المغزى منه، بس إنه يكون مظلة لجميع أنواع الفنون والثقافات.
والدعم بجميع أشكاله، يعني قد يكون دعم معنوي، مادي، معلوماتي، أي نوع من أنواع الدعم. الشعب المتفاعل ثقافياً مع حضارته وتاريخه وثقافته المعاصرة والماضية والحاضرة والمستقبلية، كل ما كان قريب من بعضه متفاعل ومترابط حيكون تأثيره في عكس الصورة الحقيقية للحركة الموجودة في المكان اللي هو عايش فيه أقوى وأهم، ولها تأثير محلياً وعالمياً أكيد مهم جداً.
الفيديو اللي شفتوه صورناه في عام 2014، ثاني سنة من تأسيس المؤسسة، وكان سبب تصوير الفيديو هذا رغبة المؤسسة في افتتاح أو في استئجار موقع في منطقة جدة التاريخية اسمه رباط الخنجي لتحويله إلى مساحة عرض وتفاعل فني وثقافي. فسجلنا الفيديو والحمد لله أخذنا رباط الخنجي وعملنا فيه عدة معارض كانت ناجحة جدا. أعطيكم فكرة عن ساك. ساك هي مؤسسة ثقافية اجتماعية غير هادفة للربح. تأسست في عام 2013 برؤية من قبل صاحبة السمو الملكي الأميرة جواهر بنت ماجد رئيسة المجلس، وعضوية 16 مهتم بالحراك الفني والثقافي. المؤسسة مؤسسة خاصة قامت على جهود القائمين عليها ودعم السبونسرز من مختلف الجهات في المملكة. كان هدفنا هو وضع الفن السعودي على خارطة عالمية عن طريق معارض نوعية يقوم بتنظيمها المجلس. هذه كانت البداية، وبعدها انطلقنا لخطوات أخرى. أعضاء المجلس لو شفتوا الأسماء حتلاقوهم جايين من مجالات مختلفة، كل واحد منهم له اهتمام بشكل أو آخر في عالم الفنون. أنا وحمزة من خلفية الأثر جاليري، مؤسسين أثر. الأميرة جواهر أسست المنصورية فاونديشن، مؤسسة المنصورية للثقافة والفنون في عام 93. رنيم فارسي وآية علي رضا كيوريترز. فيصل تمر بيترون. بسمة السليمان. طبعا حنسى بعض الأسماء ما حذكرهم كلهم، لكن الشاهد في الموضوع أنه تجمع هذه المجموعة من المهتمين بالحراك الفني والثقافي بشكل خاص نابع من واقع إيمانهم برسالة وحبهم واهتمامهم بالمجال الفني، أسسوا هذه المؤسسة بشكل خاص لدعم الفنون. أهدافنا 3 أهداف رئيسية كانت نصب عيننا وإحنا بنفعل المؤسسة: دعم الحراك الفني السعودي، عن طريق إقامة معارض نوعية، البرامج التعليمية والتثقيفية والتطويرية في القطاع الفني، وإنشاء مواقف أو أماكن لتبادل الخبرات والتجارب من قبل القائمين على العمل الفني محليا وعالميا. وللوصول إلى هذه الأهداف قمنا بالنشاطات الخاصة بساك. أولها كان 21/39. 21/39 جدة آرتس هو معرض نوعي له. نحن السنة الجاية في 3 مارس المعرض التاسع، ندعوكم جميعا للحضور، اللي عنده وقت الله يحييكم لا يفوتكم المعرض. وكانت بداية 2139 تتمحور حوالين هذا المعرض النوعي، وكيف ممكن نتعاون ما بين الفنانين المتلقيين المحترفين عالميا ونظهر هذه القدرات الثقافية والفنية محليا وعالميا. فالفكرة كانت نعين كيوريتر، قيم فني عالمي، يقوم بعمل دراسة للساحة الفنية، تحديد عنوان للمعرض، فكرة للمعرض، واختيار فنانين معينين للعرض في هذا المعرض محليين وعالميين. بالتوازي البرامج التعليمية وبرامج المجتمعية متوازية مع برنامج المعرض. في ال8 سنوات الماضية عملنا 9 معارض. 9 معارض لأنه في سنة عملنا معرضين، سنة موسم جدة من سنتين. من الأهداف الرئيسية لساك هي التكليف الفنان الأعمال الفنية. في فترة ال9 معارض ال8 سنوات الماضية كلفنا 171 عمل فني من فنانين سعوديين، وشارك معنا 66 فنان دولي. فلو تلاحظوا حرصنا على يكون في الكونفرسيشن بين الفن المحلي والعالمي بشكل مترابط ومتوازي. في خلال فترة العمل صار عندنا موقعين رئيسيين. الموقع الأول المركز الرئيسي لساك، واللي ما زارنا طبعا نأكد عليكم الزيارة في 3 مارس. احنا موقعنا الرئيسي في مركز تجاري. المركز التجاري ذا في منطقة في جدة اسمها سوق الشاطئ، منطقة مكتظة بالمحلات الشعبية. ولما فكرنا نفتح المؤسسة ونختار مكان للعرض، طبعا التحديات كانت كبيرة في إيجاد مكان مناسب بمساحة مناسبة، ارتفاع أسقف مناسبة، ما كانت سهلة. وكان الموقع اللي في جولد مور أحد المقترحات اللي قيمناها. كان في أعضاء موافقين وأعضاء معارضين، لكن جرت الأقدار وأخذنا الموقع اللي أعتقد كان مناسب جدا. مواقفه كبيرة، مساحته كبيرة، سقفه عالي، والوصول له سهل. بعد سنة من المكوث في المركز التجاري لاحظنا أنه جدة التاريخية إرث كبير جدا حضاري وثقافي مهم جدا لمدينتنا اللي احنا عايشين فيها. وارتأى المجلس أنه التواجد في منطقة جدة التاريخية يعزز القيم والأهداف اللي المجلس يحاول يوصل لها. فعملنا الفيديو ورفعناه للجهات المختصة، واستأجرنا رباط الخنجي اللي فعلناه بشكل دائم مع معارض ساك. في مواقع أخرى بالنسبة لنا في ساك بالذات في مرحلة في إيفنت 21/39 إنه يكون الاتصال على مستوى المدينة بشكل كامل، ونجرب أماكن جديدة، ونجرب أماكن قد لا تكون يعني أماكن مبنية مخصصة للعرض، لكن تحويلها بشكل أو آخر إلى أماكن للمعارض. وتوفقنا في العمل في مصنع بيبسي القديم في منطقة في مدينة جدة، كانت عملنا في إيفنتس جدة التاريخية ومدينة الملك عبد الله الاقتصادية ومتحف عبد الرؤوف خليل. فهدفنا كمان إقحام الجهات الأخرى والتعاون بشكل شامل في مدينتنا. كيف بنعيش من وراء السبونسرشيبس؟ طبعا كان تحدي كبير لما بدأنا أول معرض في 2013. المعرض طبعا هذا يكلف مبالغ كانت كبيرة شوية، وأعضاء المجلس يعني مشكورين قرروا أنهم يدعموا بشكل جزئي. فقلنا ممتاز، نروح مدام عندنا دعم جزئي وإحنا 15 نروح للشركات المحلية الرائدة ونحكيهم عن الفكرة ونقول لهم أدعمونا بشكل سبونسرشيب. وأخذنا المشوار ورحنا لشركات مختلفة وبنوك وغيرها، لكن الجميع ارتأى أنه الفكرة قد تكون خيالية شوية وصعبة التنفيذ وتحفها الكثير من المخاطر والتحديات. فلقينا نفسنا مزنوقين، ما حيصير المعرض، إيش هنسوي؟ ما في أي سبونسر موافق إنه يعطينا فلوس، لا جهات مالية ولا غيرها. واجتمعنا في اجتماع من الأعضاء، وأحد الأعضاء جاب فكرة، قال ليش ما نكلم أهالي جدة يدعموا أول معرض. وابتكرنا باكج سبونسرشيب باكج خاص بالأفراد، أظن كان 50,000 ريال لكل عائلة، ولقاء 50 يحصل المتبرع على بعض الميزات لكنها محدودة جدا. أنا أعتقد وفي هذيك السنة استقطبنا 45 داعم. الداعمين هدول كلهم أكيد المردود المعنوي اللي أعطيناهم هو كان محدود، لكن صراحة أثلج صدورنا ردة فعلهم تجاه الهدف والرؤية اللي احنا بنطلع إليها. دعمونا وعملنا أول معرض. بعد أول معرض ونجاحه الحمد لله استقطبنا داعمين آخرين، منهم UBS وفان كليف اند أربلز، كانوا من الداعمين الرئيسيين للمبادرة. وطبعا من 3 سنين لما تأسست وزارة الثقافة كانت من أوائل الداعمين والمؤمنين بالمبادرة. ففي الفترة الماضية وزارة الثقافة، هيئة الفنون البصرية وهيئة المتاحف كلهم دعموا المبادرات، مشكورين. وغيرهم من المؤسسات والشركات اللي قررت أنها تدعمنا بشكل دائم وسنوي. طبعا وجودنا واستمراريته يعتمد على هذا الدعم. فإحنا اليوم بنتعامل في ساك بين 3 جهات رئيسية: الفنانين، الداعمين، والقائمين على الأعمال الفنية، وبنحاول نوفق بين ال3. في السنوات اللي اشتغلنا فيها دعمنا 25 شركة مؤسسة و47 دعم خاص وفردي. على السلايد بعض الجهات اللي دعمتنا واشتغلت معنا، منها الحكومية والخاصة والفردية كذلك. من الأهداف الرئيسية لساك هي التواصل المجتمعي والبرامج التعليمية. يهمنا كثير التفاعل والانجيجمنت مع المجتمع، إن كانوا فنانين مختصين أو طلبة مدارس، بروفيشنالز عالميين عاملين في القطاع الفني بشكل في مكان عالمي، أو حتى هاوي يبغى يحضر ورشة عمل أو محاضرة عن موضوع معين قد يراه شيق بالنسبة له. فركزنا على هذا البرنامج بشكل كبير، وبالتعاون مع وزارة التعليم وغيرها من الجهات استقطبنا 250,000 طالب في 9 سنوات من خلال 5000 رحلة مدرسية. كنا نعمل يوميا 6 رحلات للمدارس ولمدة 12 أسبوع، اللي هو الفترة معرض 2139. بعد فترة من التعامل مع البرامج التعليمية قررنا إضافة ماستر كلاسز، وقدمنا منهم 2، واحد اسمه استكشاف، والثاني التعرف على تصميم المساحات الفنية. جدير بالذكر برضو أقول لكم إنه كل ما يزيد الدعم تزيد البرامج، لأنه برامجنا كلها مجانية، فيما عدا الماستر كلاسز ناخذ مبلغ بسيط من المشترك عشان نحرص إنه يحضر، لكن 50 توك أو 200 ورشة عمل أو غيرها من البرامج اللي قدمها ساك بنقدمها بشكل مجاني لجميع المهتمين بالحراك الثقافي، كل على المستوى اللي يخصه ويهمه. من النشاطات الإضافية لساك طبعا 2139 كان البداية. بالمناسبة 2139 معناته الإحداثيات مدينة جدة، لأنه كثير يلخبط الموضوع، فهي حطيناه في جوجل إيرث يطلع لنا مدينة جدة. لمن بعد 3 سنة من 2139 لاحظنا إنه الجدول السنوي حقنا يحتاج تفعيل. طبعا إحنا مؤسسة زي ما قلت لكم خاصة، نقدر نقول يعني المشغل الرئيسي لها هو الشغف للمجال الثقافي والفني. خطتنا ما كانت مرة واضحة وإحنا بنبدأ، لقينا كانت ردة فعل لأمور كثيرة جدا، واعتقد المرونة الاستراتيجية حقتنا أعطتنا القدرة إنه نخدم جهات مختلفة وأماكن مختلفة، قطاعات في المجال الفني تحتاج التركيز وتحتاج إلى جهة خاصة منفردة تتحرك بسهولة وسرعة في تلبية احتياجات المجتمع الفني إن كان في جدة أو أكثر. لهذا السبب قمنا باستحداث مبادرتين إضافية: مبادرة معرض شارة للفن والتصميم، ومبادرة جدة فوتو، هكلمكم عنها باختصار. مبادرة شارة هي مبادرة تتمحور حول الارت فير ايديا. يعني هي فكرة ارت فير مبسط جدا. حبينا من خلال نشاطاتنا في المجلس، جاتنا استفسارات كثير في معرض 21/39 وأكيد سمعتوها في البيانالي، كم سعر هذا العمل؟ ممكن اشتري هذا العمل؟ بكم هذا العمل؟ طبعا المعارض الثقافية الاجتماعية في الأغلب الأعمال اللي فيها ما بتكون معروضة للبيع، والهدف منها مو سعر وترانزاكشن، بيكون الهدف منها هدف أكبر وأسمى ثقافي اجتماعي وفني. لكن لقينا أنه التفريق بين الاثنين مهم جدا للمجتمع عشان يعرف الفرق بين المعرض الثقافي والمعرض التجاري. فأسسنا مبادرة شارة للفن والتصميم بمشاركة صالات عرض أو جاليريز محلية وعالمية. كل جاليري بيجي معانا يشارك، يحط الاختيار من الأعمال الفنية اللي بيبيعها، نعزم متابعينا ويتفرجوا على الأعمال ويشتروها إذا حبوا. بالإضافة لمعرض الآرت فير أضفنا مزاد خيري صامت كجزء من مبادرة شارة، لأنه في سنة من السنين لقينا أنه الفلوس اللي بتيجي من السبونسرز ما بتكفي المعرض وتوابعه. فكرنا في طرق إضافية للدعم المادي، فلقينا فكرة المزاد الصامت فكرة فعالة عالميا، طبقناها في المملكة وكان ردة الفعل لها إيجابية جدا. من الأسئلة اللي دائما نسمعها، كيف نقدر نتفاعل مع ساك؟ نبغى نشارك في معارضكم، ما حد كلمنا، ليش ما حد بلغنا إنه المشاركة حتكون هنا ولا هناك؟ كيف أقدم ملفي للمشاركة في المعرض؟ وأرجع أقول لكم إحنا في بداية كلامي في معرض 21/39 الاختيار بيقوم في القيم الفني. إحنا دورنا كمجلس نختار القيم ويوقف دورنا هناك. القيم بنعطي له تذكرة مفتوحة على داخلية طبعا مو عالمية، ونقول له سافر جميع أرجاء المملكة، أبحث في المدن، أبحث في الأماكن المختلفة، اكتشف الفنانين اللي يناسبك ويناسب موضوعك، أعرض له أعماله، وإحنا نتكفل بإنتاج العمل. وبعد ما يخلص المعرض الفنان ياخذ عمله، ممكن يشارك فيه في مكان تاني أو يبيعه. فكان خلق لنا هذا حاجز بيننا وبين المشاركات للفنانين أو اكتشاف المواهب الشابة. طب إيش يسوي الفنان اللي القيم ما ناسبه عمله؟ يبغى يشارك، يبغى يكون معانا في المنظومة. فاستحدثنا عدة open calls، يعني طلبات مفتوحة open calls. كان أول واحد في برنامج مبادرة ساك لاستكشاف أو لاكتشاف المواهب الفنية الشابة. وصلنا 586 مشاركة، اخترنا منها خلال ال3 سنوات اللي اشتغل فيها الأوبن كول يمكن 70 فنان وفنانة شاركوا. بعضهم باع أعماله في شارة، والبعض الآخر يمكن ما باع بس شافوا قيم فني في مكان ما شارك معاه في معرض ثاني. فإحنا بالنسبة لنا بنقدم أو بنوفر منصة للفنانين كجهة خاصة غير هادفة للربح. دورنا ينتهي عن تقديم المنصة وإنتاج المعرض وإدارة المشروع بشكل احترافي عالمي. الباقي على الفنان إنه يشارك، يتفاعل، يدور معانا عشان يقدر يوصل للأهداف اللي يصبو إليها. فيعني هذه بعض الإحصائيات: 110,000 زائر فترة 6 سنوات 7 سنوات، 15 جاليري محلي و8 عالمية و20 مصمم محلي. آخر مبادرة لساك هي جدة فوتو، حيكون افتتاحه في يوم 16 فبراير العام الحالي. فالله يحييكم، برضو دعوة تانية هنتعبكم معنا رايحين جايين على جدة. وفكرة جدة فوتو هي معرض نوعي مختص بالتصوير. أضفنا إليه جائزة للنيو فيجن فوتوغرافي أوورد في السعودية بالتعاون مع هيئة المتاحف. حيضم المعرض، حتكون هذه أول نسخة من معرض جدة فوتو، حيضم عدد من الفنانين السعوديين والعالميين، والذي يحاكي نطاق التصوير بشكل خاص. آخر مبادراتنا هي إضافة لمبادرة 21/39 وهي مبادرة التكليف في الفضاء العام. أضفنا للقيم الفني العامل على معرض 21/39 أن يختار مجموعة من الفنانين الذي يتوقع أو تتوقع إمكانيتهم في إنتاج أعمال خارجية للفضاء العام، بيقدموا مشاريعهم كمسابقة، وعن طريق لجنة اختيار محايدة يتم اختيار أحدهم لتنفيذ العمل الفني في الفضاء العام بالتعاون مع أمانة مدينة جدة. الكيو ار كود هذا الانستغرام اكاونت حقنا نخليه شوية على الشاشة، اللي يحب يصوره عشان يتابعنا ويعرف البرامج، الفرص، المعارض، الأوبن كولز اللي ممكن يقدم عليها ويستفيد من التعاون معنا في ساك. أنا ما خلصت، بس يعني عاجبني الحماس. أشكركم. هو البرزنتيشن تقريبا خلص، فاللي صفق معانا صح في الوقت المناسب، لكن حابب أشارككم زي ما يقولوا كده كلمتين ختامية، some closing remarks. يعني نحن بدأنا من 9 سنين، السنة الجاية 10، بدأنا في وقت فتحنا فيه معرضنا في مركز تجاري. أول سنة عزمنا أظن 40 أو 50 مختص عالمي في مجال الفنون والثقافة. استخراج الفيز كان يعني يحتاج له يعني مجهود ضخم جدا، كان شبه مستحيل. جبناهم، شافوا المعرض، فتحت هذه المعارض فرص للفنانين والفنانات السعوديين وغيرهم، خلقت منصة للحوار وتبادل المعلومات والخبرات وأشياء مرة كتير. وكانت رحلة جدا شيقة. شفنا زي ما شفتوا مئات الآلاف من الأطفال من المدارس يجوا على المعرض. كان نفسي طبعا حددوا لي هم وقت فمضطر اني يعني التزم فيه. كان نفسي اوريكم بعض التستيمونيالز حقت الاطفال او المدرسين، بعض ردود افعال الناس اللي حضروا المعارض وشافوها ذيك الايام، جدا مثلجة للصدر بشكل كبير. لكن عشنا 9 سنوات واليوم احنا في محفل ثقافي فني رائد جدا، معرض عظيم في مكان نقدر نقول مشابه. احنا كنا في مركز تجاري، انتم في مستودعات يعني، بس بس يعني يمكن ضبطوها شوية احسن مننا. اقدر اقول انه احنا اليوم عايشين في صحوة فنية وثقافية في المملكة العربية السعودية في وقت يعني غير مسبوق، فرص يعني عظيمة. سمعنا زملاء وأصدقاء تكلموا قبلي وحيتكلموا بعدي على مبادرات وأهداف وتطلعات ما أظن في أحد في العالم شاف زيها في هذا القطاع بالذات. فيعني أنادي جميع الفنانين العاملين، حتى اللي بيفكر يعني مثلا أنت بتفكر طب ولا فن، لا روح فن، في فرص عجيبة. يعني لا تضغط على نفسك أو على نفسك. يعني this is a really unique and special time in Saudi Arabia with opportunities and support from the leadership to the smallest employees. يعني اشتغلنا مع قطاعات كثير، اشتغلنا مع أغلب الناس. يعني أنا ألبس طاقيتين في العالم الفني، طاقية حقت ساك وطاقية تانية اسمها أحد مؤسسين جاليري أثر. فبنتعامل مع كثير من هذه الجهات، وصراحة شفنا مستوى من الاحترافية والتفاني في العمل ودعم غير مسبوق. فحبيت أنادي وأقول لجميع الزملاء العاملين في هذا القطاع، يمكن اللي بدأوا معانا من عقد أو عقدين من الزمن، إنه now I think this is our time to really يعني يكون لنا بصمة وتأثير مو بس محلي لكن عالمي. فأكرر شكري DBF، وزارة الثقافة، هيئة الفنون البصرية، أمالة، وكل الناس من رياض آرت. صراحة you're all doing a great job and we're all looking forward to working together to realize all our dreams and visions. Thank you very much. Now you can clap.
شكرا أستاذ محمد على طرح ممتع وملهم يعكس حقيقة الطموح لمؤسسة الفن للجميع. واسم هذا المنتدى هو اسم على مسمى منتدى الحراك الفني المحلي. والآن حضورنا الكريم ننتقل إلى ضيفتنا أنطونيا كارفار، المدير التنفيذي لفن جميل, joining us virtually from Dubai. It's great having you with us, Antonia. I pass the mic to you.
I'm so sorry I'm not there in person. I'm sure everybody will know this difficulty of traveling at the moment and having to be in isolation, but very happy to be with you virtually. And I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much to Ranim Farsi, to Aya, to Arwa, to all the organisers of the Biennale, and congratulations obviously on the ongoing success. We see so many people pouring through the doors. It's really exciting to see such an incredible reaction from the community to such a world-class exhibition. So thank you. And lovely to be following, having been watching on the live stream, so many colleagues that we're working with and collaborating with together in Saudi. Let me share my presentation. You'll have to all let me know if this works. Up on the screen. Great. So I just wanted to say a little bit today about what we're doing at Art Jameel in Saudi and around the world. We've just in the 75th year at the moment of Jameel philanthropy, which many of you will know through the work of Community Jameel as well as Art Jameel. Art Jameel itself has been going for more than 20 years, but we've just recently started to have our own installation in our own institutions for the first time, so really putting down kind of roots in terms of bricks and mortar. Art Jameel is very much rooted in this idea that the arts are absolutely fundamental to our lives and the way we live in today's world and to our understanding of the world. And also this idea that we have a right to make the arts as accessible as possible, that everybody should have access to the arts. Art Jameel is an independent, non-governmental, non-commercial organisation, and we spend a lot of time, particularly in Saudi these days, thinking through what can we offer alongside all the incredible initiatives that you've been hearing about the last 2 days, to make sure that we're always being as responsive as possible, plugging any gaps that exist there. And really our fundamental kind of building blocks are supporting artists through exhibitions, commissions, many other programs, and alongside that really seeing education and learning as absolutely central. So the idea is really to open up our understanding of the arts, that the arts can be this prism to understanding society at large, to building kind of discursive communities that are somehow then future-proof for everything that we have coming at us these days. So we work mainly through 6 different areas, exhibitions, obviously with a particular kind of skew on looking at the Gulf, at the Arab world, at the global South, but then also opening up all these different exchanges and networks across the world. Our collection is fundamental to what we do. We again sort of focus a lot on artists from the Middle East and from South Asia, but we also collect through curatorial themes. So we'll think about themes like material heritage, for example, and look at artists from across the world that are engaging in these kinds of ideas. So therefore, again, creating these kinds of networks of thought and exchange rather than seeing artists as from a particular geography. And as I mentioned, learning is absolutely central to everything. We're starting to get more and more online and looking at what we can do in the digital space, for very obvious reasons, but we still believe very much in this kind of tangible people in a room exchanging ideas and really looking at what we can do outside of formal education. So what kind of informal educational networks can we produce through community schools, through workshops, through working with kids in schools and out of schools, all the way through to teens, young curators and artists. Commissions, again, as Mohammed Hafiz just pointed out, public art and commissions is, part of the deep history of Jeddah. But there's more and more space to kind of produce artists and artists' work that really impacts directly and exchanges directly with the audience in a city, with the passerby and the non-interested arts audience, as well as the usual suspects. We have an arts library in Dubai, and we're building a library in Jeddah that looks at cinema as well as the arts. And again, this kind of idea of libraries being active spaces, not silent spaces, but spaces for the community to come together to, develop research and deep research into the history of the Gulf, again, to try and sort of plug these gaps that are in desperately need of really adhering to looking at publishing in Arabic, looking at the history of Saudi and Gulf art histories, for example. And at the heart of this is obviously community, responsive kind of approaches to the community, asking what the community needs, and really trying to embed the arts right there in the city with the audiences, especially looking at youth. So yeah, as I mentioned, we worked for many, many years in this kind of agency model, working with third parties to try and deliver our aims. And just recently, over the past 5 years, we've built 2 institutions, really again, trying to think of one international institution that can very much easily reach the world. Dubai is a very obvious city to build such an institution in. And then another institution in Jeddah that really looks at the needs of Jeddah as a city. So again, this kind of responsive theme is really thinking what's there already, what can we contribute that complements the likes of SAC, that complements everything happening in the government sphere, and really tries to plug these kinds of urgent gaps that appear through the arts scene. So hi Jameel, Jeddah, I'm sure some in the room have already been, but if you haven't, please come and see us soon. The idea is very much that this is a community hub that brings together artists, filmmakers, creative practitioners from all different disciplines into one place, and enables audiences that appreciate their work and new audiences that are coming to the arts for the first time to really engage. We really tried to pick up on this kind of history of Jeddah being a city that for millennia has been connected with the world, that has this kind of spirit at the heart of it being a port city that's one of exchange. We wanted to pick up on that, and also the history of multidisciplinarity in Saudi in general, and particularly in Jeddah, where artists or creatives of different sways will work across the different art forms, and to bring together these different art forms in one space. We also saw during the building of Hi Jameel that we originally had a theatre in the space, but when cinemas opened up back up again, and we began to see that the cinema industry in Saudi was starting primarily with kind of the commercial cinemas in mind, we decided to turn that theatre into an independent cinema, the kind of picture house that can showcase Saudi films, that provides a community for young Saudi filmmakers to come together to practice their craft and to share work with each other, that shows films from across the Arab world, independent cinema from everywhere else, and really tries to really develop a kind of audio-visual culture of independence and artistic sway in Jeddah. Jameel Art Centre in Dubai opened in 2018, so slightly older. It was planned after Hi, but it kind of moved very quickly in terms of the build, and ended up being open before Hi. Again, we kind of looked at the needs of Dubai as a city and thought, what can we do to really contribute to this scene? And of course, there's the commercial gallery scene there, there's the fair there in terms of the commercial side of the art world, but we were lacking a contemporary visual arts institution that really acted as a kind of museum anchor to the city. And again, our role is very much also about connecting with the world. And we're really, really proud that we've started now to already see exhibitions that are developed in Dubai, and now hopefully soon in Jeddah begin to tour to other institutions around the world. So this idea of really thinking, instead of the Gulf as somewhere that can consume from the outside, instead to project from the inside out to the external world and really showcase these kind of very, research-driven, curatorially-led exhibitions that are totally steeped in local thinking, but have a kind of connection with the world and that draw in audiences from anywhere. So Hiwa K here in Dublin, for example, Hiwa is an Iraqi artist whose exhibition was curated by Art Jameel curators in Dubai, and it's now traveling to Ireland and then on to Canada afterwards. The same with these other exhibitions along the top, which are all international, and then our exhibitions in our 2 institutions here as well. This is just a snapshot of the last 6 months. Just moving on to Hay. I'm trying to keep an idea on the time, but I'll rely on the organisers to flag me if I'm going on for too long. But just to do a little bit of a deep dive in what we're hoping to achieve with Hay. As I mentioned, we just opened in the first week of December, so a very, very young institution. We're just getting going. And I really wanted to thank the community in Saudi for all the incredible support. Everyone from MOC, everyone from the Jeddah community, from across Saudi, for really joining with us in trying to propel forward this institution, and for the community in taking us to their hearts. I mean, we've been absolutely overwhelmed with visitors, which has been incredible. Capacity in the galleries every weekend. We've actually had to institute a 1 in, 1 out policy to make sure that we're not overcrowding the galleries, and just to see this great kind of bubbling up of enthusiasm from visitors of all walks of life, all interests, or all depths of knowledge about art is something that's truly heartwarming. And we know this is only the beginning, obviously. The Hay, as I mentioned, is very much a kind of bespoke home for the arts. Every element of it is thought through in the context of Jeddah and the context of what we feel and what practitioners has come to saying, this is what we need. Multidisciplinarity, diversity is very much at the heart of it. A lot of that is brought by our residents, the tenants that are joining us, creative businesses and enterprises mainly from Jeddah, including Atha Gallery, for example. So someone that's incredibly well known in the Saudi art context, but all the way through to a new baking academy, for example. So bringing together all kinds of creativity in its broadest sense under one roof. And then again, this idea of lifelong learning, thinking that, the arts open up a space to talk about ideas, to talk about our lives today, how we want to live in the future. And they're not only about the process of making, it's about what exhibitions can spark, the kinds of conversations that we can have around those. In terms of Art Jameel's offering within Hay, we very much focus on visual arts, which is, and Hay Arts at the moment is the piece of the pie that's already been launched. Hay Learning, as I mentioned, is this kind of community art school, which offers everything from weekend deep dives for artists looking at subjects such as, how to write an artist statement, the kind of the nitty gritty of law around the arts, of copyright, of the sort of very much skills-based programming, through to the more kind of discursive debates around histories and ideas around exchange within the arts. And then branching out into, we've just run, for example, a year-long apprenticeship program for young curators from the Gulf who did an online school and had practical knowledge as well. And then the next sections to come are Hay Cinema, which I talked about already, which will open in a couple of months' time. And then lastly, our studio spaces. So again, this is taking the longest, the studios, because we really want to think through with local artists exactly what is needed. We're imagining at the moment this will be a mixture of maker spaces where people can really come and explore different techniques, through to residencies, international and local, and the provision of studios for workshops and ongoing types of learning. And then Hay Community is really what draws it all together. And that's the section at which we really try to be very responsive to the audience's needs, as well as working with our residents as well. I just wanted to give an idea of the facade for anyone that hasn't seen it to date. I guess this is typical of the way that we want to work with artists in terms of joining them in taking experimental approach, taking risk together. This work started as a proposal from Nasser Al-Mulham as a painting, and we worked with him to develop it into this kind of three-dimensional commission for the facade. And this is a program that's going to be repeated every year. So this will be here until August, and then we'll switch up into the 2022 commission, which can be anything from a text-based work to a photographic work. It's all about trying to sort of experiment with medium and to work with artists in a really kind of considered and intensive kind of way to produce new work with them. Just to give a little bit of an idea, I'm sure this is a rendering, I should really have a photo, But just to give an idea of once you've walked into Hay, the kind of activity that you'll see, the Fina, for example, is a community space. It can be rented out by anyone. We're starting to plan that out to have farmers markets, for example, on weekends, pop-up exhibitions. It's fully kitted out as a kind of exhibition hall for very serious shows. The library, the cinema, the cinema library as well on the first floor, as well as the cinema taking up the ground and first floor on that side. And again, you know, the way we want to work is so closely linked with the local community. The cinema, for example, the design of it, we opened up as an international competition, had architects from around the world apply. It was a totally blind process. Each architect just had a number, so none of us knew, include, you know, the jury as well as the organisers, who was who. And we were thrilled when the jury selected Brick Lab, so, you know, who obviously played a large role in designing the Diriyah Biennial as well. So, you know, just showing that we perhaps sometimes underestimate the, you know, talent and kind of original thinking that is coming out of Saudi and how that can compete on the international stage. Just to spotlight a little bit what we're doing with High Arts. So High Arts is a 2-floor exhibition space. It's really our kind of community museum, but one where we really try to imagine it as an experimental space, a kind of laboratory of ideas, if you like. And we try to there put in place exhibitions there that spark a kind of conversation that really get people talking about art. So the opening exhibition staple, What's on Your Plate, is co-curated with Delphina Foundation, our partners in London, and it looks really at food and how we as humans relate to food, and investigates all the entanglements of food with memory and with ecology, with the future, with place, and really, you know, this idea of Jeddah as a cosmopolitan city and Saudi as a kind of crossroads of millennia really kind of come together through this idea of artists working with food. The show includes Saudi artists, artists from across the Gulf, artists. This is a work by Asuncion Molinos Gordo, who's a Spanish artist. These are this incredible collective from Congo. These sculptures are made out of chocolate. And I think one of the most successful elements of this exhibition that we want to repeat with other exhibitions is this laboratory idea. So over 2 years ago, we started working with ecologists, scientists, artists, thinkers to imagine the exhibition. And we brought them together in this kind of cohort, if you like, that debated once a month, every month, what food means to us. And so they helped really develop the exhibition themselves, and through that practice supported each other. So every artist in the Gulf that was taking part in the exhibition had a kind of counterparts working elsewhere in the world, and they developed ideas back and forth in exchange. And you know, we all know about the slow food movement, where we're trying a little bit to kind of, in a way, institute a kind of slow art movement. As Mohammed mentioned, you know, this is a particularly unique moment in Saudi right now, one that we're all so privileged to be a part of. And thinking globally, there are very, and through history, there are very few moments like this when a scene really kind of re-explodes. It's obviously not something totally new in Saudi, but this kind of connection with the world and this sudden focus in which the grassroots is coming together with the government to really have this ground up and top down approach to the arts is something incredible. You know, but a note, I guess one note of caution is that we're moving, you know, and for, you know, for necessity's sake, we're moving at an incredible speed. So we're trying to keep up with that speed while also trying to institute something of a kind of, you know, counter force that slows people down, that really tries to put in place those kind of thinking skills, research skills, where we really try to debate with each other about what the art scene needs for the long term in a slower and kind of considered way, together with government colleagues, together with everyone working in the scene. One other commission that we did for the opening, which I guess was also trying to sort of really think about this moment being a reawakening rather than something that is new, which is sometimes how it's seen from the outside world, was a commission by Osama Asid, the photographer, working with this collodion wet plate technique. And he did a road trip around Saudi for around 6 weeks to different cities, And he's now completed around 55 portraits of Saudi artists, many of whom are from the older generation who've been carrying the scene for so long. And this is an ongoing project in which we want to try and document as many artists as we can. And in a way that we work often in collaboration, obviously, with Riyadh, as Ilaria was saying earlier, we've toured a series of artists' works, the Saudi artists mainly, that were involved in the Riyadh Festival and exhibition curated earlier this year, which of course members of the curatorial committee for the Biennale were also involved with. And those, I guess, in a way of giving Jeddah audiences a chance to see some of this incredible activity that's going on in Riyadh, and to give those Saudi artists another airing. I'm aware that time is ticking, so I'm going to go very quickly through this section, which just highlights a little bit of what we're doing in Dubai. As I mentioned, the Dubai Centre is home to our library. It's also 3 floors of exhibition space. It's very much more of a museum dedicated to visual arts compared to our multidisciplinary centre in Jeddah. Just to focus on the library a little bit, because this is something that also spills over a lot into our work in Saudi. We now have a collection of around 4,800 books and documents looking at Middle Eastern, but particularly Gulf exhibition histories in English and Arabic, some in French and other languages too. And art books that are relevant to this region is how we've tried to position the library, and to build up a kind of research program that runs alongside. So this, for example, was a deep dive into 3 years of exchange between stage designers, theatre, poets, and artists that took place in the kind of mid-80s in the UAE, just as an example of the kind of work that we do. This is another project that's happening at the moment by the Egyptian food researcher and historian Salma Seri, who's looking at traditions and decades of cooking and recipes in the Gulf. Our artist's garden is an example of the kind of radical collecting that we're getting into at Art Jameel, in which we're adding gardens that are created by artists to our collection. So this kind of idea of radical collecting is thinking we need to collect artists' works that document our history and show our pattern of thought. We also need to push our understanding of what can be collected. And through that pushing and challenging ourselves, it also leads back to us to question our own relationship with artists, the relationship between artists and nature, what it is to own something and what it is to open it up to the public. Quick idea of, these are some of the exhibitions that are on at Jameel Art Centre at the moment. Sita Abad, an incredible Filipino artist who's never been shown in the Middle East or South Asia at all. So, you know, again, kind of thinking, what are our networks? Who lives in our cities? How do we connect with the broader community and bring those kind of entanglement of histories between Asia and the Middle East and Africa together? And finally, just very quickly on international collaborations, Delphina Foundation in London is a very close collaborator of ours. We exchange ideas, we challenge each other, we coach each other, and we also enable artists from the Gulf to take up exhibitions, take up residencies in London, and we co-curated our shows together in the current show in Jeddah. The V&A was one of our first partners in London with the support from the Jameel family for the Islamic Art Program at the V&A. And the Jameel Prize is now in its 6th year. It's just finished its run in London and it's about to open in Chile for the first time. So touring to Latin America for the first time. And of course, for many people know that Ajlan Garem was the winner this year, the first winner we have from the Gulf. So again, when we work internationally, when we work locally, it's about what can we do at the grassroots level? How can we work with our collaborators to grow the scene? When we work internationally, it's about how can we showcase Middle Eastern artists, and particularly those from the Gulf, to an international audience and try and build that understanding. And likewise at the Met, the Jameel program at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York is about really thinking in depth about Middle Eastern arts histories and how to showcase them within the context of the Met, where Middle Eastern art has not had to date a really very high presence. And just thinking, you know, that the need to broker a conversation in a city like New York with an American public as well as an international public is something that really feels quite urgent quite now. So I think that's the end. I'm sorry if I talked very quickly. I should have taken a leaf out of Mohammed's book and also thought about how to make sure everyone can get in touch. But it's easy to find us on Instagram, whether it's Hi Jameel or under the Art Jameel account as well. And please do get in touch. We particularly in Saudi want to reach out to artists via open calls, but obviously the learning programs are absolutely central to everything we're doing as well. And we're really trying to think about this idea of learning and engagement in the broadest possible way. So the program over the last month at Hi Jameel, for example, has included skills-based workshops such as darkroom techniques, a 3-day program of that with the summer seed, through to beekeeping workshops. Bees are a part of the exhibition that's going on at the moment. So we did 3 weekend courses in beekeeping with Saudi beekeepers. Tonight, happening now, we have an opera recital. The American artist Laurie Anderson has come and given a talk. So it's this kind of balance of bringing in exciting practitioners working internationally, giving space to artists working locally, and really trying to think about the arts and the way that we can create connections with science, with community, with ideas in the broadest kind of possible way. I think that's it from me, but I would love any questions if anybody has any. Is it possible to pass the mic around if there are any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Antonia? I have a question, Antonia. I don't know if you can see me. I'm actually very interested to know. You can? I'll speak louder. I'm very interested. I'm very interested to know what has been maybe the most interesting feedback you've heard from the public regarding workshops. I can imagine the beekeeping workshop would have been something very unique and different. And I think something like that is so important for people to understand the connectivity, to think about things beyond art itself, but more about human connection and environment. So I'm very happy to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Thank you. That's so kind. Well, I mean, we're very, as I mentioned, obviously, Art Jameel has worked in Jeddah and alongside Community Jameel for a very long time, but this having a centre feels like a very different experience for my colleagues that have been there for even longer than me. So it's very much a learning curve in very early days. But I think one of the most encouraging things has been this immediate sort of understanding that Hi Jameel can be a kind of home from home. So this was always our initial intent, that artists would use it as a place where they come together, exchange ideas, they hang out, in the courtyard and chat with each other. And it really becomes a place of knowledge production and the production of ideas, as well as the consumption of art. And to hear artists say, that they've been longing for something like this for some time has really kind of given us some confidence and energy that we're doing the right thing. The most surprising thing actually happened yesterday when someone turned up to a workshop with a parrot with them. And I had someone message me from the team saying, what is our policy on parrots? Are they allowed to attend workshops? So, we should never underestimate the Jeddah public to surprise us. But I think probably the most surprising thing, apart from the parrot, is really that there's this kind of depth of understanding about the way in which art is enmeshed with different disciplines. So I think we maybe tend to think of the arts in today's world, especially coming from a kind of the institutional sort of perspective, that you did make a division between visual arts, photography, culinary, sculpture, performing arts, cinema, that these things are all very separate. But our audiences have really been kind of very much taking to their hearts and immediately accepting that beekeeping workshops is part of developing creative ideas. The mesh between ecology, history, tradition, and contemporary art is something that audiences and artists are completely at home with. And I think it's maybe a lesson to institutions like ours not to necessarily kind of silo the different the different kinds of creative endeavor, but instead to look at ways in which they can come together, and in that way we can create sort of new art forms. And I think that's something that, from my understanding, is that the Gulf is actually way ahead of other countries in imagining this sort of multidisciplinary approach, maybe perhaps because it was so embedded in the 60s and 70s, and artists were so much part of a kind of, multidisciplinary community. So it wasn't unusual for someone to be a poet and a visual artist, and also create stage for theatre and things like this. So I think that's something that's been a big kind of affirmation for us, that this is the right way to go.
That's amazing. That's excellent. Happy to hear that. And I hope we can all hope for this multidisciplinary environment to really progress quite rapidly over the next few years. Does anyone else have a question? All right. Thank you so much, Antonia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, Antonia, for your interesting presentation reflecting the great efforts of Art Jameel in supporting the development of the art scene in Saudi Arabia. حضورنا الكريم، الآن بناخذ استراحة قصيرة لمدة 15 دقيقة، بعدها بنرجع نستكمل جدولنا اليوم مع آخر متحدثة اللي هي الرئيس التنفيذي لمعهد مسك للفنون. Enjoy your break. We expect having you back after 15 minutes. Thank you so much. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حضورنا الكريم، نختتم برنامج اليوم الثاني والأخير من منتدى الحراك الفني المحلي بعرض من الأستاذة ريم السلطان، الرئيس التنفيذي لمعهد مسك للفنون، فلتتفضل مشكورة إلى المنصة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم جميعا. ختامها مسك مع معهد مسك للفنون. حياكم الله. بداية اسمحوا لي أشكر مؤسسة بنالي الدرعية على ما قدموه من صراحة عمل جدا رائع بالنسبة للمعارض الفنية والأعمال الفنية المتواجدة، وأيضا البرنامج المصاحب الثقافي اللي فعلا يعني كنا احنا بحاجة له وتواقين لحضور هذه الفعاليات، فشكر خاص لمؤسسة بنالي الدرعية. اليوم احنا راح نحكي بشكل عام على معهد مسك للفنون والبرامج اللي يقدمها المعهد، وفي الختام بإذن الله إذا في أي أسئلة أو استفسارات يسعدني أني أنا أرد على كل أسئلتكم. طبعا معهد مسك للفنون له قصة يمكن تلامسنا كشباب بشكل كبير، لأن المؤسس هو صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير محمد بن سلمان حفظه الله، وكان عنده رؤية ثاقبة من بداية تأسيس المؤسسة قبل تقريبا 10 سنوات، فكان مهتم جدا بالفن، وكانت أحد الركائز اللي تركز عليها مؤسسة مسك الخيرية اللي هو الفن والثقافة بشكل عام. طبعا خلال السنوات السابقة المؤسسة قدمت برامج ومبادرات مختلفة تركز على الفنون، وفي 2017 كانت هي يمكن بداية ونقطة تحول خلينا نقول في مدينة الرياض، لأن في هذاك الوقت صار في تنظيم لأول فعالية فنية على مستوى خلينا نقول كبير ومفتوح متاح للجميع، وكانت بعنوان أسبوع مسك للفنون. كانت تقريبا منصة تجمع كل الفنانين والهواة والمهتمين في هذا المجال، كان في معارض فنية، كان في عروض أداء حية، فكان يعني خلينا نقول كرنفال للآرت في 2017. بعد نجاح هذه المبادرة ولأن كان لها أصداء جدا جدا إيجابية، وطبعا الاهتمام المؤسس في مجال الفن بشكل عام، تقرر إنشاء معهد مسك للفنون. فأنشئ معهد مسك للفنون في ديسمبر 2017، وبدأنا رحلة خلينا نقول الشغف مع فريق عمل جدا طموح. وحرصنا خلال الفترة أو السنوات الأولى أن إحنا نركز على بشكل عام على كيف أن إحنا نلبي احتياجات هذا القطاع اللي يعتبر لسه ناشئ وفي فرص جدا كثيرة. فحرصنا على أن إحنا نقدم برامج تدعم الفنانين، وأيضا أن إحنا يكون لنا مساهمة في تنمية القطاع. ولما نتكلم على القطاع بشكل عام الفني أو قطاع الإبداع، في فرص جدا كثيرة، فكيف يكون لنا بصمة وكيف يكون لنا أثر مميز. فكان في مجموعة من الدراسات في السنوات الأولى، وكان في مجموعة من خلينا نقول حلقات النقاش اللي دارت مع المهتمين في هذا المجال، لحد ما المعهد يمكن توصل خلينا نقول توجه رئيسي يسعى من خلاله اللي هو تقريبا خلينا نقول المساهمة في تنمية قطاع الفنون والثقافة السعودي، وأيضا تمكين الفنانين الصاعدين من خلال منظومة مترابطة من الخبرات والدعم والتعليم. هدفنا طبعا أن إحنا نفتح فرص جديدة ونرتقي بالفن، ونبغى الفنانين كمان يكملون في هذا المسار ويستمرون في شغفهم. لما قدمنا البرامج، لما نتكلم عن الفن، دائما الفئات المستهدفة تكون يمكن مفتوحة أو بشكل واسع كبير، فحرصنا إحنا أن نركز بالدرجة الأولى على الفنانين الصاعدين. ونقصد الفنان الصاعد اللي هو الفنان اللي ممارس ومستمر في الممارسة، عنده مجموعة من الخبرات في عرض الأعمال، في حضور برامج فنية مختلفة، عنده خلينا نقول هدف أن تكون الفنون هي مساره المهني. فحرصنا بالدرجة الأولى أن نركز على هذه الفئة كفئة تكون لها الأولوية في برامجنا. وأيضا في نفس الوقت إحنا ما أغفلنا باقي الفئات، فحرصنا أن يكون عندنا الفنانين المبتدئين اللي هم لسه قاعدين يبغون يجربون، يبغون يحاولون أنهم يشوفون مجال الفنون ويتعلمون من خبرات مختلفة. وأيضا أخذنا بعين الاعتبار الفنانين المحترفين المخضرمين اللي أصلا already معروفين على المستوى المحلي والعالمي. وطبعا ما نهمل الفئة المهمة اللي هي فئة المجتمع، لأن أحد أهدافنا كمان إحنا نرتقي بالذائقة الفنية، فكمان حرصنا في برامجنا أن إحنا نستهدفهم. وبناء على الفئة المستهدفة هذه يمكن المعهد عمل على خلينا نقول ترتيب برامج وسميناها برامج رئيسية، بحيث هذه البرامج تكون برامج سنوية، يعني نسعى من خلالها أن نخلق أثر ونكون داعمين وممكنين للفنانين السعوديين. فركزنا على عدة برامج، ويمكن من أهم البرامج اللي راح أحكي عنها اليوم اللي هو إقامة مسك الفنون. طبعا برامج الإقامة بشكل عام هي مهمة جدا لأي فنان لأنها تسقل موهبته، وبنفس الوقت احنا في المعهد حرصنا ان احنا يكون برنامج الإقامة مختلف، فنوفر فيه فرصة للبحث والممارسة والتجريب لحد ما يخرج منتج عمل في نهاية برنامج الإقامة، بحيث أن نعطي كمان فرصة للمشاركين أن يكون في عندهم زي عرض أعمال لنتاجهم خلال هذا أو هذه المدة. في نفس الوقت خلال المدة اللي تمتد تقريبا إلى 3 شهور حرصنا أن إحنا يكون فيها برامج مصاحبة، فنوفر فيها نقول ماستر كلاسز أو برامج متخصصة للفنانين بحسب تخصص أو حسب نقول الثيم العام للبرنامج، بالإضافة لجلسات حوارية مختلفة. ونحاول كمان أن نربط الفنانين مع المجتمع الإبداعي الكوميونيتي الخاص بالفن، بالإضافة للمجتمع بشكل عام. ونركز في برنامج الإقامة على التبادل الثقافي كأحد الركائز الأساسية. فنحرص بالنسبة للبرنامج الإقامة المحلي اللي يقام في صالة الأمير فيصل بن فهد في مساحة، أن دائما يكون المشاركين معنا سعوديين بالدرجة الأولى، وأيضا ما نغفل الفنانين العالميين سواء كانوا مقيمين أو غير مقيمين في السعودية. احنا نكون بعد طبعا قبول مشاركتهم يشاركوا يشاركون معنا في هذا البرنامج، لأنه مهم جدا أن الفنان تحصل له فرصة التقاء وتبادل الثقافي مع فنانين في نفس خبراتهم. أيضاً حرصنا في برنامج الإقامة أن من خلال شراكات عالمية مع جهات جداً مرموقة ومتميزة في خلينا نقول هذا النوع من البرامج، أن نقدم برامج تكون عالمية دولية، فندعم الفنانين وناخذ الفنانين السعوديين ونبتعثهم أو يصير في يعني أنهم نعطيهم فرصة المشاركة في برامج إقامة في الخارج. وكان في لنا تجارب السنة السابقة في برلين، وتعرفون طبعا بحكم كورونا فهذه تكون دائما متغيرة على حسب البرامج. وحاليا احنا هذا العام في طور ان احنا نعلن عن برامج إقامة محلية ودولية جديدة بالتعاون مع شراكات عالمية. أيضاً عندنا أحد البرامج اللي جداً مهمة واللي مرتبطة في أحد الأهداف الرئيسية للمعهد اللي هو تعزيز الإنتاج الفني. فعشان نساعد في تعزيز الإنتاج الفني حرصنا أن يكون في عندنا برنامج رئيسي اللي هو منحة مسك للفنون. برنامج منحة مسك للفنون يعد الأول على مستوى العالم من حيث القيمة المادية، لأنه بقيمة $1,000,000 ريال. هذا البرنامج احنا طرحناه حاليا لمدة دورتين، والآن تم الإعلان وحاليا مفتوح الدورة الثالثة بعنوان سراب. نحرص أن كل سنة يكون في زي نوع من التحدي للمشاركين، فنعطيهم موضوع معين وهذا الموضوع يكون عام، وبناء عليه هم يشاركون خلينا نقول الأفكار أو كونسبت معين وهم يقدمون لنا، في لجنة مختصة تقوم بمراجعة هذه كل العروض المقدمة لنا واختيار الفنانين المناسبين اللي تتناسب مع الثيم العام. ونحرص كمان أن عشان نعطيهم فرصة أفضل أن إحنا في نهاية العام نسوي زي المعرض أو عرض أعمال لهذول الفنانين، بحيث أن كمان نربطهم ونحاول أن إحنا نخلق لهم فرص جديدة، لأن مؤمنين تماما أن أحد أدوار معهد مسك الفنون أن يكون منصة لربط الفنانين مع خلينا نقول أصحاب الخبرات، مع العاملين في هذا المجال، بحيث أنهم يخلقون فرصة جديدة لهم وتساعدهم في مسيرتهم الفنية. بالنسبة طبعا للمعارض الفنية، اسمحوا لي هنا كمان أنا راح أحكي على صالة الأمير فيصل بن فهد. يمكن من أهم الإنجازات اللي قام فيها معهد مسك للفنون، وبناء على توجيه سمو سيدي المؤسس حفظه الله، أن إحنا نأخذ صالة الأمير فيصل بن فهد للفنون اللي كانت أحد العلامات المميزة في الثمانينات كأول صالة حكومية للفنون، ونعيد ترميمها ونرجع مرة ثانية نشغلها. فالمعهد يمكن بدأ من 2018 في عمل على ترميمها، وصار في الافتتاح الأولي في 2019 من خلال معرض حكاية مكان، حكينا في قصة المكان ال10 سنوات الأولى، والآن افتتح. وفي 2020 كملنا الافتتاح النهائي لها بأن إحنا فتحنا مساحة. هذه المساحة عبارة عن منصة مفتوحة للفنانين والمبدعين، مكان مفتوح في مكتبة فنية، في كوفي شوب، في جيفت شوب، في مساحات عمل مفتوحة، في تقام ورش عمل متخصصة تستهدف المجتمع وكافة أفراد المجتمع بشكل عام، بالإضافة أنها تستهدف أيضا الفنانين والمتخصصين من خلال برامج إحنا نقدمها بشكل أسبوعي، وأيضا متاحة لأي أحد حاب أنه يجي يتعرف على الفنانين وكل العاملين في هذا القطاع فموجودة. حرصنا من خلال هذه الصالة ومن خلال مواقع أخرى سواء كانت داخل الرياض أو خارجها أن إحنا نقدم معارض فنية. والمعارض الفنية اللي عادة إحنا نقدمها تكون مقيمة فنيا بناء على فكرة محددة يشارك فيها فنانين سعوديين وفنانين غير سعوديين، سواء كانوا عرب أو غير عرب عالميين. نحرص في المعارض أنها ما تكون فقط عرض لأعمال فنانين، ولكن دائما يكون في برامج مصاحبة. هذه البرامج المصاحبة تكون جلسات حوارية، تكون برنامج لزيارة المدارس، تكون فيها مطبوعات بحيث أن نوثق هذه المعارض، يكون فيها خلينا نقول توثيق لمسيرة الفنانين المشاركين. طبعا المعارض الفنية احنا عندنا بشكل دائم تكون موجودة في صالة الأمير فيصل بن فهد، وأيضا حاليا احنا عندنا مشاركة معرض ل100 بوستر في مهرجان السعودي للتصميم قائم الآن، فكمان أنا أدعوكم فرصة أنكم أنتم تزورون هذا المعرض. في أيضا بالنسبة لبرامج التدريب والتطوير، زي ما ذكرت في البداية أن أحد أهداف المعهد هو تمكين الفنانين للاستمرار، وخلنا نقول أن تنمية قدراتهم ومهاراتهم بحيث أن يكون الفن هم مسارهم الوظيفي. فحرصنا من خلال مجموعة من البرامج اللي إحنا نقدمها أنها تكون سواء كانت مبنية بالكامل من المعهد أو من خلال شراكات عالمية من جهات لها مجال واسع في هذه، زي مثلا The Royal College of London، زي سوثبيز وجهات أخرى بإذن الله، أن نقدم برامج تكون متخصصة، ونحرص في كل البرامج اللي نقدمها أنها تكون تناسب الوضع الحاصل الآن في المشهد الفني السعودي. فتركيزنا بالدرجة الأولى على الفنان السعودي، فإيش اللي حاليا محتاجه عشان يطوره. فكل البرامج تكون خلينا نقول أن مصممة بحيث أنها تخدم هذا الفنان، بحيث أنه ممكن أنه يكون له أثر واضح في التطور اللي حاليا قاعد يشهده هذا القطاع. في أيضاً كمعهد تعليمي ركزنا على البحوث والنشر، ونحرص أن إحنا يكون في عندنا مبادرات تركز على المطبوعات. ويمكن أحد أهم المبادرات عندنا مبادرة مكتبة الفن، اللي مؤسسة بنالي الدرعية استضافت جلسة حوارية وأيضاً توقيع كتاب لهذول الفنانين، لأن عندنا أحد الأهداف إثراء المحتوى بشكل عام سواء كان باللغة العربية أو بالإنجليزية عن الفن السعودي وأيضا الفن العربي. فحرصنا أن إحنا كل سنة نصدر 4 كتب باللغة العربية وبالإنجليزية. هذه الكتب تصير تركز على جانب معين بحياة الفنان، وتكون متاحة سواء داخل المملكة أو خارجها، لأهمية طبعا التوثيق وإثراء المحتوى بشكل عام. أيضا نحرص أن بالنسبة للمطبوعات أن كل البرامج اللي إحنا نقدمها أنها دايما تكون معها زي الكتالوج اللي يكون يوثق مسيرة هذا البرنامج، وفي عندنا أوراق بحثية كمان كلها مرتبطة في قطاع الثقافة والفنون بهدف إثراء المحتوى بشكل عام. ونحرص أن دائما في المطبوعات أنها تكون باللغة العربية والإنجليزية عشان تكون مصادر تدعم العاملين في هذا المجال. في عندنا كمان أسبوع مسك الفنون، وهو يمكن المبادرة اللي بناء عليها أنشئ المعهد. هذا الأسبوع يكون عبارة عن احتفال كامل يضم تقريبا كل ما يقدمه المعهد من معارض فنية، برامج تدريبية متخصصة، برامج للأطفال والأسرة، يكون في جلسات حوارية مختلفة، يكون منصة لخلق فرص جديدة للشباب أو حتى للفنانين المخضرمين، بحيث أنه يكون عندهم مشاريع تساعدهم في مسيرتهم الفنية. أسبوع مسك الفنون عادة يكون 5 أيام، ومدة خلال ال5 أيام يمكن ما يمدن إحنا نقدر نحن ندعم ونعطي كل خلينا نقول الشغف اللي يكون موجود عند فريق العمل أو عند القطاع العاملين في هذا المجال. فعادة تكون التركيز في هذه ال5 أيام على الجلسات الحوارية والبرامج التدريبية بشكل مكثف، ولكن المعارض الفنية اللي تكون خلال أسبوع مسك الفنون تستمر لمدة 2 أو 3، بحيث نعطي فرصة للجميع أنهم يحضرون ويشوفون المعارض الفنية. طبعا زي ما ذكرت لكم في البداية على صالة الأمير فيصل بن فهد ومساحة، حرصنا في مساحة أنها تكون آرت هاب أو مركز تجمع للفن. في نتيح الفرصة لأي شخص الدخول والحضور، ممكن يجون يرسمون يتناقشون. عندنا مجموعات فنية تجي بشكل دوري تحضر للمكان. عندنا برامج تدريبية، حرصنا أنه يكون كل شهر في يوم العائلة، عشان بس إحنا نبغى جيل جديد ينشأ على تقدير الفن وعلى احترام ومعرفة أهمية هذا الفن. فعندنا في نهاية كل شهر ميلادي يكون يوم العائلة، تكون فيها أنشطة موجهة للأطفال والأسرة بشكل عام. فممكن الأم أو الأب مع أبنائهم يحضرون برنامج تدريبي معين، يكون في جولة في المعارض تتناسب مع الفئة العمرية اللي هم يكونون الصغار أو الأطفال، بحيث أنها تكون عامل جذب لهم. صالة فيصل بن فهد مفتوحة بشكل يومي الفترة المسائية من الساعة 4 إلى الساعة 10 طول أيام الأسبوع ما عدا الجمعة. نحرص أيضاً في معهد مسك الفنون أن كل ما نقدمه يكون متاح أونلاين أو افتراضياً، لأننا مؤمنين أن الفن لازم يكون للجميع. فما نبغى نقتصر فقط على سكان الرياض أو المتواجدين فقط في الرياض، ولكن هدفنا أن إحنا يوصل الأثر إلى خارج الرياض، وأن كل خلينا نقول المهتمين في الفنون تكون لهم فرصة الاستفادة. طبعاً لما نقول افتراضياً احنا نقصد فيها المعارض الفنية. جميع المعارض الفنية اللي المعهد نظمها من بداية 2019 إلى الآن متاحة في الموقع الإلكتروني، ممكن أن الزائر ياخذ جولة افتراضية فيها. البرامج اللي احنا نقدمها في عندنا نحرص دائما أن يكون في جزء منها افتراضيا موجه للفنانين والمهتمين اللي يكونون خارج الرياض، بحيث أنها تكون الفائدة للجميع. طبعا هذا باختصار أهم البرامج اللي المعهد يقدمها. وإحنا زي ما ذكرت لكم إحنا نسعى أن نكون عضو فاعل وأحد الجهات الداعمة لقطاع الفن في السعودية، واللي تساهم في نمو القطاع اللي حاليا يشهد ازدهار جدا جدا كبير وفي فرص جدا كبيرة. يعطيكم ألف عافية وشكرا لكم. إذا في أسئلة. تفضل.
شكرا، أهلا وسهلا. 2017 كان أسبوع مسك للفنون أشبه بعرس في الرياض، وكان صراحة شيء يشجع كل أحد يزوره. في الفترات السابقة صارت أسبوع مسك للفنون أسبوع مركز بناء على برامجه وأهدافه وإلى آخره. هل في الخطة أنه يرجع العرس الأول في الفترات القادمة، أقل شيء كل مثلا 2 أو 3 سنوات تصير فيه فعالية كبيرة، وبعض السنوات هل موجود عندكم في الخطة هذا الشيء؟
شكرا لسؤالك، دائما يجينا هذا السؤال. بس أنا أبغى أذكر أن إحنا خلال الفترة السابقة جاء كورونا، فكورونا خلانا في 2020 نضطر ان احنا نكون 70% من اسبوع مسك الفنون فيرتشوال او اونلاين عشان الاجراءات الاحترازيه. ايضا السنه اخر نسخه في 21 ما زلنا الى الان احنا نعاني من هذه الجائحه. هدفنا بالدرجه الاولى ان احنا نقدم كل ما يخدم الفنان بطريقه تكون مركزه للفنان، وايضا اخذين بعين الاعتبار باقي الفئات الاخرى. فباذن الله راح تشوفون 2022 نسخة تكون مختلفة تماما، بس إن شاء الله يعني ربي يكفينا شر كورونا.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
هل في برامج مستقبلية تعنى بالفاشن كونه انعكاس للفن من حيث تصميم الأزياء والتعبير عن الهوية والإبداع من خلال المظهر؟
يعطيك العافية على هالسؤال. طبعا الفاشن أو الموضة هو أحد خلينا نقول الأشياء تحت الفن، تندرج تحت الفن. إحنا كمعهد مسك الفنون حاليا التركيز الأساسي على الفنون البصرية. يكون في عندنا دعم للفاشن من خلال مثلا أسبوع مسك الفنون، نعرض بعض منتجات المصممين السعوديين، ولكن البرامج الرئيسية مركزة أكثر على الفنون البصرية، ولكن نأخذ بعين الاعتبار جميع أنواع الفنون بشكل عام. في سؤال؟ يعطيكم ألف عافية، شكرا لكم.
في سؤال.
بالفعل ختامها مسك مع مسك. شكرا أستاذة ريم السلطان على هذا العرض الثري، وهذا ما عهدناه من معهد مسك للفنون دائما. حضورنا الكريم، بهذا نكون قد وصلنا إلى نهاية منتدى الحراك الفني المحلي. شكرا لوقتكم وحضوركم واهتمامكم وتفاعلكم. إذا حابين تعرفوا أكثر عن ورش العمل والمنتديات القادمة زوروا موقع بنالي الدرعية، ولكم الآن ساعة من التواصل والتعارف في ساحة الاستقبال. لكم مني أطيب تحية وشكرا لكم.